Rob Gledhill, looking to retain the seat of Thurrock Rectory. Even over the last 4 years, a huge amount of issues in what is a very busy ward.
It is, Michael. It might be the smallest geographically. It's 4,500 residents, but it has an awful lot of issues left over from the past. We've got the Globe Industrial Estate. It's a centre for employment, but unfortunately it's outgrown its size. Here on Morven Road we've got travellers that have set up on the Greenbelt and are trying to build 5 caravan homes and 5 touring caravans parked up there. Again, on a site that's just not sufficient, and of course on the Greenbelt. It doesn't matter where you go in Little Thurrock, there are still these residual problems that life has outgrown the size of the roads, the size of the pavements, the size of the verges in Little Thurrock. Things have moved forward far too fast for us to keep up.
As we are here on Morven Road, is this issue, because we have to be, I guess one feels one has to be very careful about this issue, but is it just about Greenbelt?
It is about Greenbelt. The residents here have had a fantastic vista out the back windows and back gardens for years. There's a chap down there who has bred horses for years, and it's been a quiet buffer between the very busy Dock Road approach, which sits just underneath the houses, and their back gardens. And suddenly, people have moved on there. They're trying to occupy the Greenbelt. If any of the residents here had bought up that plot, they would have exactly the same problems trying to put 5 chalets or 5 bungalows on there, which is effectively what's happening. Unfortunately, the people on the site have chopped the trees down. They've tried to clear the site for them rather than keep it as a green sound barrier between the main road and the residents. Of course, that upsets everybody. Couple that with cutting up the road and blocking off the end of the whole of the road for pretty much the whole day, where you've got very elderly people and poorly people. It just obviously sets hairs running.
We go on to the housing issue. Whether it's yourself or someone like Lynn Carr, pressing housing issues in the borough. In what way, taking it as a borough way, in what way would the Tories do things better or differently?
First of all, everyone has to come clean on what the problems are. We have mould across the borough. We have poor housing stock across the borough. We need to stop, take full check of this, and not just a quick survey of a couple of houses in an area and say, oh, that's fine. Every single house would need a proper visit, a proper inspection, and ask the residents what they need. I go to residents who are concerned that if they raise a problem, the council will put them out on the street. Now, the council won't put them out on the street, and I can assure you they won't put them out on the street because they've raised a complaint, but that's what some of the residents feel like. Other residents feel that they've reported this time and time again and have got absolutely no action. And what's made it worse now, we've got some houses that are being refurbed and they're not being done to any sort of high standard. Pennies being painted onto windowsills, electric sockets left wide open for weeks, months on end, and when you've got people coming back around and putting some sticky tape over a main junction box to say that makes it safe. If that's the high standard of work that Thurrock at the moment is happy to expect, they really do need to raise the bar.
Can I go on to another issue as well, which is out with you, but you have a lot of responsibilities across the borough, is the Barking and Dagenham thing. I don't hear over in our sister paper in Harlow, I don't hear anybody really complaining about shared services, and yet you have really made an issue about this. Can you just, again, as Deputy Leader, why?
This is not just shared services, Michael. We're looking at most of the senior management is shared 50% of the time. So for half of the week, the people who should be driving forward Thurrock are not here. And if they're not here, standards slip. When it's difficult for a councillor to get hold of a senior manager because there is a significant problem that they need to address and urgently, and we get told, well, sorry, that are Barking and Dagenham, that's hardly just shared services. That pretty much is part-time management, and that's not acceptable for the residents of Thurrock. We're on the cusp of improving. We've got an awful lot going forward in Thurrock, both from outside of the council and some of that inside the council. We need full-time managers here. We need everybody here to improve services locally, not sharing with a borough that's got pretty much nothing in common with Thurrock at all.
I guess you must be knocking on the doors and people are saying the words UKIP. What is your response to that?
Well, UKIP, if you're going to vote UKIP locally, you're going to end up with another UKIP councillor like they have in Aveley who votes with Labour straight away. So it really is vote UKIP, get Labour. If you look up in Norfolk, the first thing they did was join up with Labour there and form a coalition up in Norfolk County. So if you're thinking of voting UKIP as a former Conservative or perhaps someone on the right of politics, then really do think again. This is not a time for a protest vote. This is not the message we need to send up to central London. What you need to do is have strong councillors locally that are standing up for you and Thurrock as a whole. You're only going to get that because...
Again, one of the things that over the years you've been a councillor that you're very passionate about is our veterans. Is there anything in the future you're planning or as part of a group planning?
Well, just before the election period started, I was contacted by a charity that deals with soldiers and former personnel that are on the streets. They'd obviously seen things we've done locally. And what they're trying to get is a number of areas where they've got temporary housing to get the soldiers, sailors, Air Force, anybody who's on the street, off the street, get them back into mainstream. If they've got drug and alcohol problems, which some have, but not all of them have, get them back on the straight, and then get them into regular employment, regular housing, and be back into real life. These are the guys and women that defend us, that give us the the ability to have free speech, to make the world a safer place. As soon as they leave the army or the forces, then a lot of them just fall by the wayside, which is terrible. Just having one homeless veteran is one too many. So we started to look at possible sites where we could set up temporary accommodation for them. The one good thing about forces personnel is they don't mind putting their back into a little bit of work. So it starts cutting down the cost of building from the start. They occupy the places for a period of time. They get back into mainstream and move on and get on with civilian life.
Going back into our Morven Road here and the whole general about planning, there seems to be a number of schools of thought, even within your own party, about whether you take things about a case-by-case basis or you take it strictly, I guess, as someone like Phil Anderson saying about the local development framework, and that is your Bible. Where are you with planning, and where do you think we should be going in the future?
The local development framework is very important, and we've made our decisions on this, and that should be how we carry it out. Obviously, making a decision 5, 6, 7 years ago, things have changed. Things always change, and that's the thing with planning. At the moment, you can pass a planning application, say 1980, 1990, 20, 30 years later, the same rules apply. Well, in those 20 or 30 years, the vehicle sizes, for instance, will get bigger. If we look down at the bottom of Rectory Road and Dock Road with Globeworks, where back in the 60s to 70s, 7, 8 tonne vehicles were large. Now we're getting 44 tonne vehicles, 20 or 30 an hour into that estate. It's effectively outgrown, but because of the way the planning rules are, you can't add additional planning restrictions to protect local residents. And this is the same here on Morven Road. The council was very fast issuing stop notices and so on, but the current planning rules nationally allow you to dig up the road, put in services which effectively enable someone to continue occupying the green belt without lawful permission. When you look at the rules, you can see why they were put there. They were put there to connect existing lawful constructions with the services maybe 1 or 2 miles away, not to enable someone that hasn't got planning permission.